Inheritance allows us to define a class that inherits all the methods and properties from another class. Parent class is the class being inherited from, also called base class. Child class is the class that inherits from another class, also called derived class. Any class can be a parent class, so the syntax is the same as creating any other class. For example, here we have a person class with first name and last name properties. We also have a print name method. We can use this person class to create an object, like object X, and then execute the print name method on it. When we run the program, we get John Doe, the first and last name. Now let's create a child class. We'll create a class named student that inherits the functionality from this other class, the parent class person. To do so, we send the parent class person as a parameter when creating this child class, followed by a colon. Now here we're going to use the pass statement because we do not want to add any other properties or methods to the class at this time. Now, the student class has the properties and methods as the parent class, first name, last name, and print name method. Now we can use the student class to create an object. Again, we can call the object X and create this object from student class, pass parameters to it, Mike for first name, and second parameter being the last name, Olson. Now we can call the print name method on this object X as well, x.printName. And when we run the program, we'll get Mike Olson. So we've demonstrated here that the child class, student, inherited the properties and methods of the parent class, person. There was no need to redefine them in the child class, student. Now we want to add the init function to the child class instead of the pass keyword. So we'll say def underscore underscore init underscore underscore and self, comma, fname, comma, lname. Now the init function is automatically called every time the class is being used to create a new object. So for this init function of the child student class, we can add some properties at some point. So for now, I'll just comment add properties. By adding the init function in the child class student, the child class will no longer inherit the parent's init function from person class. In other words, the init function of the child class student overrides the inheritance of the parent's person class init function. Now, if we want to keep the inheritance of the parent's init function, we can add a call to the parent's init function, person the init self fname lname. By the way, Python also has a super function. So instead of person here, we can specify super. And what this will do is it will make the child class inherit all the methods and properties from its parent, which is the person class. So by using super, we do not have to use the name of the parent element, person. It will automatically inherit the methods and properties from the parent. So with that being said, we'll also have to remove the self from here because of that. So now we have successfully added the init function and kept the inheritance of the parent class, and we are ready to add functionality in the init function. For example, we can add a year parameter, self.graduation equals to year, and pass the correct year when creating the object. So let's say 2019, for example. Now, when we run the program, you'll notice that we don't actually get the graduation year printed out, which makes sense because the parent class's print name function does not really have any reference to the graduation year at all. It only has the first name and last name parameters. So we can add a method called welcome to the student child class, and this will return the first name, last name, and the graduation year in that display output. Now, if you notice, we actually just get Mike Olson because on the object here, we're still using the print name method from the parent class. So we'll need to change this to the welcome method that we added in the child class. And now when we run the program, we get welcome Mike Olson to the class of 2019. Now, what if this method was actually named welcome in the parent class instead of print name? What would happen in this case? Because now we have welcome in the parent class and welcome in the child class, both the same named functions. Well, when we run the program, what happens is the welcome method in the child class overrides the welcome method inherited from the parent class. So the one in the child class is what is selected by the interpreter. So we call this in OOP function overriding. where we are overriding the same function that's named the same with a different output based on the class it's being called from, in this case, a child class.